After the pledge, if everyone is okay, I would like to give a moment of silence for Donovan Clayton.
We're recording and we're on YouTube, so you can start anytime.
Okay. Jim, want to lead us off in the pledge? Jim, you're on mute. Jim Gully, Councilman Gully.
With liberty and justice for all. I'm sorry.
Councilman, can you do it over, please? I apologize.
Council President, I'm sneezing my brains out. Would you please lead us?
No problem. I have horrible allergies myself, the pollen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, at this point, I would just ask everyone to give a moment of silence to Donovan Clayton. His life was taken, and very senseless and very, very sad. Thank you.
You are using the device audio, it says.
Okay. Our moment of silence is finished, and our thoughts and prayers go out to his family. I know that there's a vigil at 6:30. I'm not sure, if we'll be able to make it. I'm not sure how long it's going, but FYI to everyone. Okay.
What'd you do? Did you do something?
Rick, do you want to maybe put yours on mute? It's up to you.
I will mute him. I will mute him.
Okay. Wow, you got power. All right. Bear with me. I have 3 devices this evening to make sure. We'll do a roll call. Councilmember Gully?
Here.
Councilmember Ash McPherson will be absent. Councilmember Steele?
Here.
Councilmember Cummings?
Here.
Councilmember Zalewski?
Here.
Councilmember McDermott?
Here.
And Council President Mantello's here. And for the record, we also have the mayor. We have Steve Strikeman, our Planning Commissioner and Economic Development Commissioner, and we have Andrew Petrosky, who is going to brief us hopefully soon on the credit card policy. And let's see, presentation of agenda. We have one item for bonding similar to the others that we did last week. Due to the COVID economic shutdown. Andy will fill us in on that. It's for paving, which is very important, and hopefully our CHIPS program will reimburse us for that. Secondly, we have a new Troy Community Land Bank member who Council Member Zalewski will introduce us to, without her here, obviously, but that's okay. And then we just have a budget transfer, and then we have Steve Strikeman, who's with us to talk about a major public hearing for some directional changes on Jacob Street, River, and King Street. So that's our presentation of the agenda, and I know that Mara has a few folks who would like to be recorded for the public forum.
Yes, I have the first statement I just want to mention a few of these did come in after 5 p.m., but we've been having trouble all day with our email coming in late all day, so I did accept all the ones that came a little bit after 5 o'clock, because I have a feeling that was a technical problem on our side. The first statement I have is from John Frank, and I did forward all of these to the council as well before the meeting. As a resident of Troy, I'm writing to encourage you to immediately freeze additional funding for the Troy Police Department and reallocate $10 million from the Troy Police Department budget to community services, projects, and people run by, decided by, and centering Black communities most impacted by violent policing. The excessive Troy Police Department budget should be redistributed to community action programs to help police and residents regain the trust that has been lost over the years. It is important to have a community review board made up of both citizens and police, as well as council members, to patch the divide that has grown over the years. We demand that this redistribution be run by, determined by, and decided by communities most impacted by violent and murderous policing. This process must center our local Black-led groups, such as Troy for Black Lives, formerly known as Justice for Demique, who have been making these demands for years. We are in solidarity and support with the demands of our local grassroots Black-led organizations, such as Troy for Black Lives, Justice for Demique. While we make these demands during a surge of Black Lives Matter protests sweeping the country after the police murders of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, and Tony McDade, we emphasize that our demands have been consistent through years of surviving and challenging oppressive policing in Troy, New York. We remember the lynching of Edson Thevenin and the attempted murder of Demique McDonald by Troy police, as well as the subsequent cover-ups by Mayor Madden, district attorneys, and other Troy officials. Defund Troy Police now, invest in Black communities. Sincerely, John J. Frank. Our next statement is from Maggie Mang. Dear City Clerk, City Council members, as a resident of Troy, I am writing to encourage you to immediately freeze additional funding for the Troy Police Department and reallocate $10 million from the Troy Police Department budget to community services, projects, and people run by, decided by, and centering Black communities most impacted by violent policing. The excessive Troy Police Department budget should be redistributed to public health initiatives, community gardens and food infrastructures, educational spaces and recreational programs, provided free of charge for community members, and greater mental health access. This is important because the overbloated budget of Troy Police Department actually does not serve community needs, and a reallocation to services that have been proven to uphold safety is urgently needed. Furthermore, policing further harms communities of color, and in particular Black and poor community members. Police violence is not safety, and I write to urge City Council members to reconsider what safety looks like for the community by actively listening to and centering those most harmed by our current police state and police department. We demand that this redistribution be run by, determined by, and decided by communities most impacted by violent and murderous policing. This process must center our local Black-led groups, such as Troy for Black Lives, formerly known as Justice for Demique, who have been making these demands for years. We are in solidarity and support with the demands of local grassroots Black-led organizations, such as Troy for Black Lives, Justice for Demique. While we make these demands during a surge of Black Lives Matter protests sweeping the country after the police murders of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, and Tony McDade, we emphasize that our demands have been consistent through years of surviving and challenging oppressive policing in Troy, New York. We remember the lynchings of Edson Thevenin and the attempted murder of Demique McDonald by Troy police, as well as the subsequent cover-ups by Mayor Madden, district attorneys, and other Troy officials. Defund Troy Police now, invest in Black communities. Sincerely, Maggie Mang. The next statement comes from
Laura?
Nate. Yes.
Laura, I apologize. Can you also include their address if they did include it, and if they didn't, if we could get that down?
Yeah, the ones I have, I will mention. I don't have them for the previous people, but
Okay.
they do all say that they're residents of Troy.
Okay, thank you.
But I can follow up separately with them.
Okay.
The next statement is from Naomi Jaffe, who lives on Oakwood Avenue in Troy. To the Troy City Council Finance Committee members, there has been a lot of talk from city officials about support for Black Lives Matter. The city budget is one key place where the rubber hits the road. Along with the thousands of other Troy residents who came out to demand that Black Lives Matter in Troy, New York, I urge you to put Troy's money where its mouth is. Defund the police. Cut the Troy Police Department by $10 million and redirect those funds to programs, projects, and services decided by, run by, and centering Black communities most impacted by violent policing. This type of initiative, which would have been unthinkable a month ago, is being considered and in some cases implemented by cities across the U.S. Let's call it the Edson Thevenin Demick McDonald Troy Reparations Fund. Sincerely, Naomi Jaffe. The next statement is from Anthony Moen. Dear City Clerk, City Council members, as a homeowner and resident in the City of Troy, I am writing to ask you to immediately freeze additional funding for the Troy Police Department and reallocate $10 million from the Troy Police Department budget to community services, projects, and people run by, decided by, and centering Black communities most impacted by violent policing. The excessive Troy Police Department budget should be redistributed to services that actually address community needs. For example, these funds could be used for better waste management services, such as a comprehensive residential composting program, providing access to healthy food, and increasing services and outreach for mental health, drug treatment, and housing. This is important because we continue pouring tax dollars into policing that is not helping residents of the city and generally only harming Black and low-income communities. We need to prioritize services that address the root causes of crime in our city rather than putting people in jail and financing violence against our citizens. We demand that this redistribution be run by, determined by, and decided by communities most impacted by violent and murderous policing. This process must center our local Black-led groups, such as Troy for Black Lives, formerly known as Justice for Demick, who have been making these demands for years. We are in solidarity and support with the demands of our local grassroots Black-led organizations, such as Troy for Black Lives, Justice for Demick. While we make these demands during a surge of Black Lives Matter protests sweeping the country after the police murders of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, and Tony McDade, we emphasize that our demands have been consistent through years of surviving and challenging oppressive policing in Troy, New York. We remember the lynching of Ensign Thevenin and the attempted murder of Demick McDonald by Troy police, as well as the subsequent cover-ups by Mayor Madden, district attorneys, and other Troy officials. Defund Troy Police now, invest in Black communities. Sincerely, Anthony Moen. The next statement is from Zan Strumfeld, who lives on 2nd Street in Troy, New York. As a resident of Troy, I am writing to encourage you to immediately freeze additional funding for the Troy Police Department and reallocate $10 million from the Troy Police Department budget to community services, projects, and people run by, decided by, and centering Black communities most impacted by violent policing. The excessive Troy Police Department budget should be redistributed to long-term safety strategies, including a focus on education, social workers, local restorative justice services, and employment programs. There needs to be a greater investment and immediate priority in the health and safety of the Black community. This is important because our Black community members make up so much of our beautiful city while simultaneously being drastically underrepresented. Troy should be a city setting an example to the rest of the Capital District and beyond, not only by showing solidarity, but through significant change and anti-racist actions. We demand that this redistribution be run by, determined by, and decided by communities most impacted by violent and murderous policing. This process must center our local Black-led groups, such as Troy for Black Lives, formerly known as Justice for Demick, who have been making these demands for years. We are in solidarity and support of the demands of our local grassroots Black-led organizations, such as Troy for Black Lives, Justice for Demick. While we make these demands during a surge of Black Lives Matter protests sweeping the country after the police murders of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, and Tony McDade, we emphasize that our demands have been consistent through years of surviving and challenging oppressive policing in Troy, New York. We remember the lynching of Edson Thevenin and the attempted murder of Demick McDonald by Troy police, as well as the subsequent cover-ups by Mayor Madden, district attorneys, and other Troy officials. Defund Troy Police now, invest in Black communities. Sincerely, Zan Strumfield. I need to take a drink of water. Hold on.
No problem. And I know some of them are form letters, but we still have to read them for the record.
Excuse me. The next statement is from David Banks. Dear City Council members, my name is David Banks and I reside at 46 Bell Avenue. This is in reference to Ordinance 42. As a resident of Troy, I am writing to encourage you to rethink the allocation of funds to the Troy Police Department. Currently, about 28 cents of every dollar in the general fund goes directly to the police department. This does not cover 911 services or traffic enforcement. While spending nearly a third of the city's tax dollars on policing is not abnormal for an American city, I would hope you use the present moment to think creatively about this situation. We ask our police to do too much without the proper training. We can't expect one person to be a warrior, an adept bureaucrat, and a conflict mediator. These are often contradictory roles that cannot be reconciled. Instead, I would encourage you to reallocate funds such that we pay for services and equipment that can stop crime before it happens. Some examples of this include funding after-school programs, particularly for teenagers and young adults, working with the school districts to make it easier and cheaper to get into HBCC and other surrounding colleges, and reinvesting in our neighborhoods with good-paying jobs that go toward fixing aging infrastructure and making generative connections with neighbors. Kind regards, David Banks. The next statement is from Raquel Vejo. Dear Council members and Council President, my name is Raquel Vejo. I am a resident of Troy on 4th Street. I'd like to use my time in tonight's public forum to address the agenda item, Ordinance Transferring Funds Within the 2020 General Fund Budget, namely the notion of transferring money within facilities in a move I can only suppose is an attempt to adjust expenditures in what is already a pretty tight budget. Indeed, Council President Mantello seems to have made a declaration in an online Facebook group regarding the need to cut expenses across the board, given the city's current financial situation due to COVID-19. And through her statements, and though her statements were erroneous and misleading in saying that there had been a 10% cut across all departments, there is something that rang important in her words. Truly, we are faced by a pandemic and an economic crisis of proportions we hadn't seen in a century. Yet this is a golden opportunity. I suggest to members of the Council creativity in the redirection of funds within the budget. Why only transfer within departments? Why not transfer between them? I suggest City Council members take a closer look at the budget and see with clarity the richness in funds that the so-called law enforcement have been given. A budget of nearly $21 million when other departments wallow, having to resort to minor switches to make the numbers work. Council members, following from Justice for Demick, we demand divestment from the police and investment in Black communities in our city. What a wonderful opportunity here for you to learn to reinvent our community, investing instead in the education, health, and safety of Black people instead of investing in the criminalizing, caging, and harming of Black people. I stand with Justice for Demick. Their demands are my demands, and here in this meeting you have an opportunity to think boldly, creatively, and towards equity for all the city's residents. Thank you. The next statement is from Maria Drysdale. As an individual who relocated to the city from Florida, is a small business owner, an employer who has brought many more residents to the area, a parent to children in the public system, and a proud homeowner in Troy, I am writing to encourage you to immediately freeze additional funding for the Troy Police Department. And I implore you to reallocate 30 to 40% of the current Troy Police Department budget to efforts that will effectively and immediately reform the cultures, practices, and morale of the department and repair relationships with marginalized and Black communities in Troy. As a business owner, I understand the cost of a trained workforce, and I recognize that the department is already understaffed and functioning with terrible morale. While my recommendations may lack knowledge of the current Troy Police Department and city budget and existing police efforts, please take the principles to heart and recognize that I am applying common business practices that we employ daily to elicit the behavior, performance, and cost efficiencies needed in our company. These are practices I see modeled every day by our team, our partners, and our clients, which include some of the largest and most effective companies and brands in the world, including Google, NASCAR, Chan Zuckerberg Initiative, Lyft, Excelon, and more than 190 other businesses. Troy PD's current practices and funds should be audited, reviewed internally, reviewed publicly, and reallocated to, number one, increase community policing. The City of Troy website states that our primary focus is on the people in our community. We work in a proactive way, getting to know the people who live and work around us. We believe that by interacting with communities, we can reduce crime and increase quality of life for the people we serve. We have also made ourselves more visible on the streets by patrolling on bicycles and foot, which gives us a chance to interact closely with the community. As a business owner who regularly parks and walks through downtown Troy, I have never spoken to, been approached by, seen, or interacted with a Troy police officer who appeared to be doing community policing. The presence of local police officers is simply not seen. This may be due to understaffing. If that's the case, recruit community police officers at a lower pay level or incentivize current officers with additional pay to genuinely patrol, say hello to, and be present in the community, building relationships. Number 2, invest in a more relevant and effective community training, also taken from the City of Troy's website. All community police officers spend time giving presentations in local schools and to various community and professional groups. The subjects range from abuse to bicycle safety to drug and alcohol awareness. Development programs that aren't a regurgitation of 1980s public service announcement. I think I read that wrong, I'm sorry. Develop programs that aren't a regurgitation of 1980s public service announcements. While these may be effective for the subjects you cover, how is this measured, is this public, there are more pressing subjects that should be addressed with the community and businesses, starting with recognition of racism and bias and acts of microaggression and violence. I can't speak to the details of these programs, but there are professionals who could recommend a more relevant and effective offering. Number 3, investigate overtime records and end of shift arrests. There should be an impartial investigation into the overtime records of all active duty officers and arrests made 1 hour prior to the end of their shift. This should be conducted for the last 6 months to assess how much overtime and how many resources were spent on false or excessive arrests by officers attempting to receive costly overtime pay. Number 4, develop a conduct-driven pay structure. A pay or bonus structure should be put in place for police officers. I agree they are underpaid, but the system is set up to incentivize an unethical performance as a means of achieving a comfortable living wage relative to the risks they incur. Police officers should be incentivized with a tiered pay structure or bonus that rewards the behavior and culture the department and community requires to fully reform the department and repair relationships with the community. The entire community, not just those supportive of and least impacted by police activities. Recommended actions that could be considered for bonuses and or raises or official accommodations factored into advancement. A, no conduct complaints for X period of time. B, X number of foot or bike patrols. C, X amount of community development, etc. Number 5, terminate officers with a history of misconduct and complaints. Misconduct records and complaints filed against police officers should be made public and reviewed by the Citizens Review Board and or other public and interested entities. Police officers with a history of founded complaints should be suspended. Number 6, develop a city outreach program for police recruitment. Establish a youth and or second career program for new recruits. Number 7, incentivize recruitment from residents in the city of Troy. Include a sign-on bonus or other incentives for residents of Troy who become police officers. Number 8, remove school resource officers and cops from schools. Within the current school year in question due to COVID-19, this is an unnecessary and uncertain use of funds. Additionally, other solutions can be put in place by the City of Troy, allowing for the reading teachers to find alternative employment in the school system as a safety patrol, counselor, student advocate, or an alternative title and role best developed by the school board and changing needs in our post-COVID world. Number 9, fund more mental health and family assistance and programs. The entire world has been impacted and traumatized by COVID-19. There will be a growing number of issues that should not receive a police response. The community needs qualified support and trained help outside of the police force. Number 10, invest in a reputation management and marketing strategy. When I do see a police officer while driving or even on a call, they don't smile or say hello. You're in the business of customer service. The entire purpose of the police department is to protect and serve the community. This doesn't happen by intimidating them. Get some training in emotional intelligence and customer service, and your outcome will be significant. I have performed this exact training for free for Clark House Hospitality and 60 of their employees. They provide exceptional customer service and have grown their business and become beloved in Troy. The police department and the city are a business. You can have a similar outcome. This isn't a sales pitch, it's a genuine statement that I would give my time for free to demonstrate what corporations pay me thousands of dollars to train them on: reputation management and marketing. I have not used my voice to help the city of Troy. That's going to change, and I'm looking forward to learning from you and becoming a more involved resident and business owner. I demand that this redistribution be run by, determined by, and decided by communities most impacted by violent and murderous policing. This process must center our local Black-led groups, such as Troy for Black Lives, formerly known as Justice for Demique, who have been making these demands for years. I am in solidarity and support with the demands of our local grassroots Black-led organizations, such as Troy for Black Lives, Justice for Demique. While we make these demands during a surge of Black Lives Matter protests sweeping the country after the police murders of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, and Tony McDade, we emphasize that our demands have been consistent through years of surviving and challenging oppressive policing in Troy, New York. We remember the lynching of Edson Thevenin and the attempted murder of Demique McDonald by Troy police, as well as the subsequent cover-ups by Mayor Madden, district attorneys, and other Troy officials. Defund Troy Police Now, invest in Black communities. Sincerely, Rhea Drysdale. The next statement is from Guy Schaefer. My name is Guy Schaefer, and I live at 2nd Street and Liberty Street in Troy, New York. I am submitting the following to be read at the public forum at tonight's finance meeting. As a resident of Troy, I am writing to encourage you to immediately freeze additional funding for the Troy Police Department and reallocate $10 million from the Troy Police Department budget to community services, projects, and people run by, decided by, and centering Black communities most impacted by violent policing. The excessive Troy Police Department budget should be redistributed to programs that empower Black youth, uplift Black voices, offer healing to Black bodies, and strengthen Black communities. We demand that this redistribution be run by, determined by, and decided by communities most impacted by violent and murderous policing. This process must center our local Black-led groups, such as the Troy for Black Lives, formerly known as Justice for Demique, who have been making these demands for years. We are in solidarity and support with the demands of our local grassroots Black-led organizations, such as Troy for Black Lives, Justice for Demique. While we make these demands during a surge of Black Lives Matter protests sweeping the country after the police murders of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, and Tony McDade, we emphasize that our demands have been consistent through the years of surviving and challenging oppressive policing in Troy, New York. We remember the lynching of Edson Thevenin and the attempted murder of Demique McDonald by Troy police, as well as the subsequent cover-ups by Mayor Madden, district attorneys, and other Troy officials. Defund Troy Police Now, invest in Black communities. Sincerely, Dr. Guy Schaefer. The next statement is from Damaris Miller. As a resident of Troy, I am writing to encourage you to immediately freeze additional funding for the Troy Police Department and reallocate $10 million from the Troy Police Department budget to community services, projects, and people run by, decided by, and centering Black communities most impacted by violent policing. The excessive Troy Police Department budget should be redistributed to parks and pools, mental health and/or rehabilitation services, out-of-school opportunities for Black youth and other marginalized youth, and community-led police accountability. We demand that this redistribution be run by, determined by, and decided by communities most impacted by violent and murderous policing. This process must center our local Black-led groups, such as Troy for Black Lives, formerly known as Justice for Demique, who have been making these demands for years. We are in solidarity and support with the demands of our local grassroots Black-led organizations, such as Troy for Black Lives, Justice for Demique. While we make these demands during a surge of Black Lives Matter protests sweeping the country after the police murders of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, and Tony McDade, we emphasize that our demands have been consistent through the years of surviving and challenging oppressive policing in Troy, New York. We remember the lynching of Edson Thevenin and the attempted murder of Demique McDonald by Troy police, as well as the subsequent cover-ups by Mayor Madden, district attorneys, and other Troy officials. Defund Troy Police Now, invest in Black communities. Sincerely, Damaris Miller. Our final statement is from Amani Olugbala. As a resident of Troy, I am writing to encourage you to immediately freeze additional funding for the Troy Police Department and reallocate $10 million from the Troy Police Department budget to community services, projects, and people run by, decided by, and centering Black communities most impacted by violent policing. The excessive Troy Police Department budget should be redistributed to a variety of Black-led community organizations, specifically those addressing police and state violence. Funds also need to go towards recreation and youth services. This is important because a lack of opportunities is directly correlated with violence and public unwellness. We demand that this redistribution be run by, determined by, and decided by communities most impacted by violent and murderous policing. This process must center our local Black-led groups, such as Troy for Black Lives, formerly known as Justice for Demique, who have been making these demands for years. We are in solidarity and support with the demands of our local grassroots Black-led organizations, such as Troy for Black Lives, Justice for Demique. While we make these demands during a surge of Black Lives Matter protests sweeping the country after the police murders of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, and Tony McDade, we emphasize that our demands have been consistent through years of surviving and challenging oppressive policing in Troy, New York. We remember the lynching of Edson Thevenin and the attempted murder of Demique McDonald by Troy police, as well as the subsequent cover-ups by Mayor Madden, district attorneys, and other Troy officials. Defund Troy Police now. Invest in autonomous Black communities. Accountability to those most impacted. This is not politics, it is life. We are counting on you to do the right thing. Love, sincerely. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mara. And thank you for all the folks that took the time to send letters to us. Hopefully next month we'll be in our chambers, but that's hopeful thinking. I did
Council President.
Sorry, I did want to let folks know, did send a letter to Mayor Madden on June 13th following up on the governor's executive order. And it's my feeling, obviously, that over the next year, we don't piecemeal various proposals. And very quickly, I'd like to read this. And this
Council President, before you move on.
I'm sorry, I have the floor. I'd like to read this letter.
We have one more public comment that came in.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. Who was it sent to?
It was sent to all of us.
Mara didn't get it?
She was not included on it, I don't think.
Okay.
It came into the city council box at 6:03, 3 minutes after we started the meeting.
Hold on one sec. I will pull it up. I have a 6:33. I have a 6:04. Dear City Clerk, City Council members, as a resident of Troy, I'm writing to encourage you, thank you, Councilmember Zaluski, to immediately freeze additional funding for the Troy Police Department and reallocate $10 million from the TPD budget to community services projects and people run by, decided by, and centering Black communities most impacted by violent policing. The excessive TPD budget should be redistributed to support community organizations like Troy for Black Lives, Justice for Demique, and Oakwood Community Center, and provide resources for our community, like public pools and summer programs for kids. The city must take this opportunity to support the needs of the community. There are strong organizations leading clear initiatives. All we need from you is a reallocation of resources to make them a reality and create a more vibrant community. This is important because if we don't all prioritize care for our community, we will continue to be divided and unable to function to support the needs of Troy residents. We need strong social institutions we can believe in right now. This is a turning point, a moment where the city has a chance to listen to residents and respond to their needs. I urge you to listen and respond now. Support the education, employment, housing, childcare, well-being, and sustainability of our community. We demand that this redistribution be run by, determined by, and decided by communities most impacted by violent and murderous policing. This process must center on our local Black-led groups, such as Troy for Black Lives, formerly known as Justice for Demick, who have been making these demands for years. We are in solidarity and support with the demands of our local grassroots Black-led organizations, such as Troy for Black Lives, Justice for Demick. While we make these demands during a surge of Black Lives Matters protests sweeping the country after the police murders of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, and Tony McDade, we emphasize that our demands have been consistent through years of surviving and challenging oppressive policing in Troy, New York. We remember the lynching of Edson Thevenin and the attempted murder of Demick McDonald by Troy police, as well as the subsequent cover-ups by Mayor Madden, district attorneys, and other Troy officials. Defund Troy Police Now, invest in Black communities. Dr. Jennifer Cardinal, Troy, New York. We also received one at 6:33. As a resident of South Troy on Hill Street.
Carmela?
Yeah.
That was Damaris Miller.
Okay.
Mara already read that email from Damaris.
Very good. Yep. Very quickly, I want to read a letter that I sent, bear with me, to Mayor Madden after the governor's executive order. And basically my letter, I won't read it, but I believe that the council's probably fully in support over the next year to come up with a plan by April 1st, 2021, which is what the executive order states. And I truly believe moving forward that it's appropriate, obviously, to develop a plan. I'm sure the mayor, the chief, and various groups to develop a timeline. And the city council has to approve this plan before April 1st, 2021, or we will get funding pulled and will not receive state funding. More importantly, I think it's important for us to obviously engage with the mayor, the community as a whole. And as I said, I'd like to hopefully have the council involved with the mayor, the chief, the police, and all of the groups within our community as we move forward. So I pledge my support, and I'm sure the other council members are certainly also in support of working with the mayor and everyone on this plan. So that's number one. Then number two, I just want to correct something that was stated. The 10% or more from our departments excluded salaries. We had stated, obviously, that we were doing everything humanly possible to not lay off, not furlough. Each department did 10% or more. I did verify that with our acting comptroller. So that's just for the record. So, so saying that, Mayor, I'm not sure if you're beginning to develop a plan, a timeline. Are you there? Great. Could you fill us in, maybe moving forward, and anything that we can do to help you as we move forward, developing the plan?
There's not too much to report at this time. We're still waiting for guidance that was promised in the governor's emergency declaration. He said there would be further guidance coming from DCJS and Division of Budget. So we're looking for that.
And I did find it very encouraging in the record today, along with Donovan Clayton's, there's a wonderful article, how the community is coming together, saying that the PBA president did mention something that I know many of us support and have supported for at least me for several years, which is Park, Walk, and Talk. So it was mentioned in the article I think that's just a huge step forward. We need to have our police out in the neighborhoods, and I call it similar to when my dad was on the force, walking the beat. Everyone knew him. And so hopefully, obviously, that will be included in some form of plan. Did anyone else, before we move, I do want to get Juneteenth, if I can say it, onto our agenda, our resolution, which follows the mayor's proclamation. But before I move forward, did anyone else want to add anything? Okay. I would like to add a resolution, which, bear with me, we received. I sent it to everyone this evening, and I believe a couple of council members signed on to the resolution 69. Would anyone else like to sign on to this resolution? So far, we have myself, Councilmember Steele, Councilmember Zaluski, and Councilmember McDermott. This is a resolution of the Troy City Council recognizing Juneteenth.
I'd be happy to add my name to it, obviously.
Thank you. We will add you to it, and we'll pass it in July. But I think it's important to make a statement and pass it this evening. And I do want to thank the mayor for leading the way with his proclamation. Thank you very much, Mayor. Okay, do I have a motion to add it to the agenda?
Make a motion.
Thank you, Councilmember Zaluski. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second, Councilmember Steele. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, resolution 69 is now added to the agenda. Thank you very much. And we will go into, come on. All right. Ordinance for no local laws, ordinance 41, ordinance adopting the City of Troy, New York credit card policy. Council President Mantello, at the request of the administration, do I have a motion?
Make a motion.
Motion, Councilmember Zaluski. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second, Councilmember Gully. And I understand our police department now has this. And Andy, if you could fill us in, and also maybe talk about some of the safeguards and how many folks will have the credit card, and obviously the benefits of this.
Of course. So like the council president said, last year, there was a credit card policy adopted for the police department. So this is exclusive of that. This allows all other departments to use a credit card. In regards to who has access to it, or who will have a card, that's on page 3, section 3. There'll be 6 credit cards. At first, all will be in the individual's name. That's how the program has worked at the police department. It will work in this. It will be the Commissioner of General Services, the Fire Chief, Superintendent of Public Utilities, Deputy City Comptroller, or their designee in the event the Deputy City Comptroller is not at work when it needs to be used, and the Deputy Mayor. In regards to safekeeping and tracking and internal controls, this whole policy mirrors police departments, which is all off of the documents put out from the State Comptroller's office. Everything is logged. All purchases have to have receipts. There's no personal reimbursements that can be done through this. Specific purchases, only in absolute necessaries as it needed. Basically, what drove this was obviously the COVID-19 pandemic. And there's been instances such as Zoom itself. The Zoom fees are being paid for by the police through the police department credit card and then being charged back to the correct department. This has been something that's been in the works for some time, and is something that we escalated to move along to get on the first available agenda once it was ready. All cards are required to be locked in a filing cabinet within the locked office. And on a monthly basis, there needs to be a reconciliation of all receipts, and it's expected that all payments shall be made timely. Comptroller's office reserves the right to review. We will review, but in-depthly audit and review all purchases and take the card away and I hope this doesn't happen, but we reserve the right to take the card away if we find that it is not adhering to this policy. So in looking at it and having it reviewed, all the safeguard measures and internal controls are in this policy to ensure that there will be no abuse for it. And I do want to note too, I mean, obviously, it's kind of a pilot program at first with the 6 credit cards. That's why it's only being given to these 6 or these 5 individuals to kind of see how it goes. And if it works well, we can certainly look at amending it for other department heads themselves. But I felt like the best way to start this was really to do certain individuals. And it's no disrespect to anyone who doesn't have one at this time. It's just meant to kind of try it out and roll it out from the card perspective incrementally, as opposed to just having a ton come out all at once.
Thank you, Andy. Do council members have questions? I really appreciate the update. Obviously, this is to improve efficiency, and I believe long overdue. We have a motion, we have a second. Further discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? All right, it passes. Ordinance 41 passes 6-0. Ordinance 42, ordinance transferring funds within the 2020 general fund budget. Council President Mantello, at the request of the administration, do I have a motion?
Motion.
Motion, Council Members Zaluski. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second, Council Member Steele. Transferring $35K from the telephone to the electric. Anything we should be aware of? Anything of?
No, it's just a transfer requested from the department.
Okay. Thank you. Further discussion?
Council President?
Yes, Council Member Cummings.
I know generally electric rates are significantly down right now. So just wanted to, is there any insight into what's going on with electricity use that it's different than what was budgeted?
I would have to look more into it.
Okay.
It was submitted by the OGS department to transfer it. I wrote the legislation put on. We can certainly look into, it may have been just a budget correction as well.
Okay.
I mean, there could be a myriad of reasons.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, that would be helpful.
Yep. Andy, if you could follow up on that, that would be helpful. Thank you, Council Member Cummings. Further discussion? Okay, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ordinance 42 carries 6-0. Andy, very quick question before we move on to the resolutions. Why are we not, or do we already have it, developing an account for the sidewalk improvements?
It's reimbursable.
Okay.
So it's just cash flow.
Okay, fair enough. We will move to the resolutions. Resolution 60, resolution of the Troy City Council appointing Patricia Riley to the Troy Community Land Bank. Council Member Zaluski, do I have a motion?
So move.
Motion, Council Member Steele, do I have a second?
Second.
Second, Council Member Gully. Council Members Zaluski, thank you for the resume. I breezed through it very, very quickly, but do you want to quickly just introduce us to Patricia Riley?
I'm actually going to take my introduction of Patricia and yield my time over to Councilwoman Steele, who has a personal relationship with with Patricia Riley, and but I agree wholeheartedly based on her credentials that she's a great. She probably overqualified for the land bank, but she'll do great.
We're very fortunate that Pat has relocated to Troy, and she's very happy to be here. She is a wealth of information, as you see her resume there. She's got a tremendous background. Some of you may actually know her professionally. I've met her through the state legislature. She's going to bring a real common sense and a real quality position to the land bank. I'm thrilled that she's willing to serve, and I would ask for unanimous consent.
Perfect. Thank you, Councilmember Steele. We have a motion. We have a second. Further discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Resolution 60 carries 6-0. Resolution 63, resolution appointing a commissioner of deeds for the city of Troy, Council President Mantello. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Second, Council Member Zaluski. Who motioned it? I apologize. My son was calling me.
I did.
Thank you, Councilmember Gully. Motion, Councilmember Zaluski seconds. He's getting a bath. Discussion. This is our new deputy clerk. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Very good. Opposed? Okay. Resolution 63 carries 6-0. Resolution 64, resolution determining that proposed action is a type 2 action for purposes of the New York State Environmental Quality Review Act. Council President Mantello, at the request of the administration, do I have a motion?
Motion.
Motion, Councilmember Zaluski. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second, Councilmember Gully. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Okay. Resolution 64 carries 6-0. Resolution $45,000 serial bonds to finance the cost of sidewalk improvements. Council President Mantello, at the request of the administration, this is a part of the COVID package that was not included last week. Maybe Andy could just fill us in very quickly. And Monica also sent us additional information this evening on this.
So this is a bond resolution, as it states, for $945,000 for the ongoing sidewalk ADA compliant project. This is separate from CDBG. I do want to note that this is all reimbursable through the CHIPS program. Similar to the bond resolutions brought forward at the last meeting. This is merely being done for cash flow purposes to relieve the general fund. Normally, the general fund will float monies for the CHIPS street paving to the capital fund and then get reimbursed upon reimbursement. And as we've discussed, that is not a situation we can currently do. So that is why this is being presented to the city council. If it were to pass, we will have it issued as part of the late July ban issuance. I will note that these will all go on bans. Costs from this will be reimbursed, as I said, through CHIPS. Any interest costs will be paid through COVID federal aid reimbursement. And I do want to note as well for the council, because I've discussed it in the past, but there is a pending bill that's been approved by the New York State Senate and Assembly that extends the timeline that you can renew bans for from 5 years to 7 years, which is a benefit to municipalities like us who issue these debt instruments, because you get much lower interest rates. I do want to note that as well. And I will also note that I talked to fiscal advisors today, and interest rates are very good on bond anticipation notes, right around 1%. So there is some benefit. There is a benefit in the market right now So yeah, I know it's been discussed since COVID has started. What is the market like for municipal debt right now? And it has obviously settled back to where it was at the beginning of the year.
Thank you, Andy. And I do believe that our New York State Comptroller was also a part of that legislation, correct?
I believe so.
Yeah, I thought I read something about that. While we are first, did council members have any questions? Okay. Also, I just want to once again implore our federal legislators, who I'm sure are tuning in this evening, to desperately request COVID stimulus federal funding for municipalities of all sizes. Certainly, these are Band-Aids, and hopefully they understand the challenges and the fiscal challenges that we're going through and will continue to go through because of the COVID economic shutdown. And we did receive April and May numbers for county sales tax, and they were pretty dismal. So saying that, hopefully some relief is forthcoming. Congressman Tonko did tag me the other day in a tweet and said he has not forgotten us. So he was the only one who replied to my tweet. So I have to acknowledge that he did respond to my tweet. So hopefully they aren't forgetting us with everything going on. Further discussion? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Bear with me. My computer just shut down. Okay, bond resolution 65 carries 6-0. Resolution 66, resolution of the Troy City Council authorizing a public hearing for changing traffic direction on Jacob Street between River and King Streets. Council President Mantello, at the request of the administration, do I have a motion?
Make a motion?
Motion, Councilmember Zaluski. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second, Councilmember Gully. Steve Strikeman is with us tonight, and he's very anxious to go on a bike ride, but he is going to fill us in on the next 3 resolutions calling for public hearings for this major traffic improvement. Steve, take it away.
All right, I'll start with Jacob Street. So if anybody has been watching the improvements above the seawall behind Brown's Brewing and Ryan's Wake, you can see that the Riverfront Park North extension is now nearing completion. It looks wonderful. As part of that project, the narrowing of that parking lot behind those businesses and Trip required the direction of the traffic to head one way north from the Green Island Bridge towards Jacob Street. So what that means now is anybody exiting from there needs to go out Jacob Street. And for northbound traffic currently, they would have had to take a right onto River Street, head south into what's usually a very congested intersection by the Green Island Bridge to take that U-turn around and head back north. Because right now, if you're heading north on King Street, you can take a left on Jacob Street or go to where King Street merges back into River Street. You could take a left at either of these. It makes sense to make one of those the opposite traffic flow eastbound. So again, it reduces traffic down by the Green Island Bridge. And if you're heading north up to Lansingburg or anywhere north, it's much easier to get out that way. So that's the request, to make Jacob Street one way eastbound instead of westbound. It leaves parking on both sides of the street, although there's a loading zone up against the Marvin Neitzel building.
Council President?
Okay.
Council President?
Yes, Councilmember Cummings.
Few questions.
I knew you would.
I live near here and walk it every day, so.
Oh, I know you do. I'm counting on you.
Now that I'm allowed to get out of the house. At any rate, let's see. Number one, just was it also looked at making River Street two-way down to there? What were the pros and cons of that?
It was considered, but given the bus rapid transit stop that will be going in and the way King Street comes into that intersection, it would have created a unique intersection at that point. So the
Definitely.
obvious solution was to just make Jacob up to King Street.
Yep. And sort of similarly, I think this will create a unique intersection at King and Jacob. With currently, you can't continue down Jacob further. There's a bunch of trees and a sidewalk in the way. I don't think there's any plans to do that, but I was wondering if it might be worth increasing the scope and looking at this whole intersection a little bit. I know anyone sort of going up the hill will have to now still go around a lot to come out, but it's not an easy problem to solve because of the way King splits there, but could be worth expanding the scope a little bit there.
So obviously, in order to do that, that would be a fairly expensive solution to remove the island. It also does bring traffic very close to that the curved building there by Columbus Circle. You'd have to also remove that, which is a park, and replace that land somewhere else. So while it's something we could consider in the future, and we probably should consider it in the future, at this point, it's out of the budget range of just changing the directional signage to accommodate traffic and make traffic flow better in that area.
Great. And then sort of just while we're on the topic of the riverfront, it is looking wonderful. I did want to just raise flag for you and I guess the mayor. It doesn't look like the deputy mayor's on today. The light poles on along the parking there,
they're vibrating,
very wobbly.
So
I wanted to make sure there's a plan to deal with that.
Yeah, there's a couple things that aren't complete yet. The Riverfront Park North extension is fairly much complete now, with the exception of a couple punch list items and those lights. We have been informed that when the fixtures are mounted on the top of those light poles, they will stop vibrating. There's also a catch basin there, which if you see has water in it that needs to be adjusted. So there's a couple. There's a couple punch list items, but we're looking at all those. Yes.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you. You want to hit the other two real quick? Might as well, unless you know.
I would be happy to. Do you need to read the resolutions first, or because we only read there's 3 separate resolutions calling for public hearings?
We'll vote on this. I didn't know if you wanted to hit all, while you were on a roll. It's fine. We can go one by one. Okay, further discussion. I just want to echo Councilmember Cummings. The waterfront mayor, I saw a picture that you posted earlier also on Twitter. It's just coming along fabulous, and it's been in the works for so many years, so many administrations, so many other local officials and partners and private sector, but it's finally coming to fruition, and it's certainly a true connection, opening what I call the front door, our main street, which is the Hudson River. So I'm super psyched, and it's good to see it in our own backyard. So great job, Mayor, great job, everyone. And certainly the private sector came to the plate to support this effort. So good stuff. Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right, so we are authorizing a public hearing. We just authorized it. That public hearing will be held on July 9th at 6 p.m. and it will be done via video conference. Okay.
I should add in, Council President.
Yes.
For that one resolution, it would be nice if there is no public comment on that night to adopt that one at the following meeting. I realize you usually want to decipher or listen to the public comment and hear what's been said. But for that one, it would be nice because that property is getting ready to open up. And it would be nice to, when we open that street, just open it the correct way instead of having it go one way west for 3 weeks and then changing it back again. So something you can think about on July 9th, but I just wanted to bring that to your attention now. The other two can wait a little bit longer,
Yeah.
Wait to the process.
Fair enough. We can talk about that together. Thank you, Steve. Makes sense. Just so folks are aware, our July meetings on July 9th. So, and I do at the end of the meeting, I did not forget you, Andy. We do need to vote on that bond before July 2nd. So I'll talk to all of you about hopefully a special meeting next week to take care of that. Okay. You okay?
I'll make it.
Okay, good. All right, resolution 65. Oh, God bless you. All right, resolution, I apologize. Oh, geez. I don't know why. Resolution 66, all in favor? We already
You
voted.
just voted.
That's what I thought. All right, carries 6-0. Resolution 67. I have to,
So
State Street.
yeah. Hold on, all right. All right, resolution 67, resolution of the Troy City Council authorizing a public hearing for changing traffic direction on State Street between 1st and 3rd Streets. Council President Mantello, at the request of the administration, do I have a motion?
Make a motion.
Motion, Councilmember Zaluski, do I have a second?
Second.
Second, Councilmember Gully. Steve, want to fill us in on this one?
Sure. So currently State Street is two-way between Front Street and First Street, and then it is one-way eastbound from there on. This proposal changes or makes two-way the section from First Street to Third Street. And the benefit of that is that when we have events, for instance, the farmer's market, which shuts down Broadway and River Street, it gets hard to get to, it's very hard to get to the State Street parking garage without running all the way back down to Congress Street and up. So this facilitates the traffic flow there. It only results in a loss of a few parking spaces between, I believe, 1st and 2nd Street. And so this is something I think with Broadway, with 2nd Street being shut down in that area for the farmer's market, this makes a lot of sense to enact at this point, and it will help. It always facilitates traffic getting to the parking garage, but it's particularly, particularly helpful during the farmer's market and other events that shut down River Street.
Okay.
It also helps gets vehicles to Lower River Street, which is always kind of a complaint during the farmer's market.
Okay. Questions, discussion? Another public hearing, which will be held that same night, July 9th. All in
Actually,
favor?
Council President.
Oh, I'm sorry, Councilmember Cummings.
Just, I know there had been some discussion around angled parking on one side versus parking on both. And is this going to end up just with a single parking lane? Or is it possible to go to angled parking in one parking lane?
Well, the way it's designed right now by Clough Harbors, I think they reviewed that and their recommendation was to just make parking on a single lane on the south side of the street.
Okay.
I don't think there's enough room to make the angled parking and still have enough room for two-way traffic flow.
Gotcha.
Okay. Good question. And Steve, I know the South Troy Industrial Road is mentioned, you know, throughout this resolution in a couple spots.
That's for the third public hearing, the South River Street proposal.
Oh, okay. For some reason, okay. It's in 67. Okay. I was wondering the connection. I'm like, wait a minute. All right. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Kind of fooling us there because it sounds like you're talking and then suddenly, oh, let's vote.
Did you like that? Yeah, I know. I won't do that again. I can't wait till we're in person. Okay, we have 6-0 on resolution 67. All right, Resolution 68, resolution of Troy City Council authorizing a public hearing for changing traffic direction on South River Street between Main and Polk Streets. Council President Mantello, at the request of the administration, do I have a motion?
Motion.
Motion, Councilmember Zaluski. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second, Councilmember Gully. Steve?
This one is a little more straightforward. It is a requirement of the South Troy Industrial Road. Since we are installing sidewalks along the north side of Main Street now to get from Route 4 down to the jail and other places in there, and that sidewalk will cross the CSX rail crossing, we needed to hold a public hearing on behalf of for CSX and the DOT. And the findings were that it was okay to do that work there, but they required that we change the direction of this road one way northbound because of its proximity, which is like immediately adjacent to the railroad tracks and the crossing there. So the railroad was uncomfortable with having cars heading southbound and pulling out there immediately adjacent to the railroad track and then crossing the tracks. So the requirement was that this be changed to one-way north. I've reached out to neighbors there and they've been discussing it. They're fully aware of this and there do not seem to be any problems other than the request that a stop sign be installed where South River Street hits Polk Street at the north end of that one block.
Great.
Thank you. You answered my question regarding the neighborhood. And obviously, I think all of us are in agreement. The South Troy Industrial Roadway is just long overdue, and we're happy to see it move forward. Did anyone have questions for Steve?
Council President,
Yes, Councilmember Cummings.
is there any discussion of Polk Street changing, or will that remain two ways?
That would remain two ways.
And is there room for a turnaround at the end? How is that end of Polk Street going to work, or is it just going to be a straight dead end?
I think it's just going to remain a straight dead end. There's no money in the budget. You know, it was never proposed to make any changes to Polk Street. So, and I don't think it's a very heavily trafficked street, although it is right now. A lot of people use that as a cut through, and in time they will stop using it once it's changed. So
there is sort of it looks like a city-owned paved parking space at the end. I think there's probably enough room for a fire truck to turn around, but I guess it'd be good to have the fire department look at it and make sure that they're not going to get stuck down there.
They're going to go the fire department's going to go where they have to go. They have to get out and go the wrong way down that street. They'll go the wrong way down that street.
They could. But
Okay. Further questions? Discussion? All right. All in favor?
Aye.
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 All right.
Thank you. Resolution 68 carries 6-0. Resolution 69, bear with me. Resolution of Troy City Council recognizing Juneteenth. Council President Mantello, and I believe everyone has signed on. And do I have a motion?
Make a motion.
Motion, Councilmember Zaluski. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second, Councilmember Steele. And what I will do is not read the whole resolution, but I do want to mention that on Friday, June 19th, the Troy, New York chapter of the NAACP will host the first annual Juneteenth Festival in Troy's Riverfront Park to mark this important historical event and bring together families, residents, and local officials to celebrate this important event that promotes equality, respect, and understanding between people of all backgrounds and cultures. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the members of the Troy City Council do hereby recognize and commemorate June 19th as Juneteenth in the city of Troy and encourage all Trojans to explore this important celebration of African American culture, history, and pride. I also, once again, want to thank the mayor for leading the way with the proclamation earlier today. Thank you very much, Mayor. We have a motion, we have a second. Did anyone else want to say anything or discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Housekeeping, we just need to schedule a date for the bomb reso to pass that before July 2nd. So I was proposing maybe next Thursday, 6 o'clock, if that worked for all of you for a special meeting. Yes?
Sure.
Are we still proposing to meet via video conference or in person?
I would say right now, for next week until, the flag really goes, I would say let's schedule a video conference and then hope the following, week, everything starts flowing. I'm just not sure. So, I mean, we could be on call. So if it does open where everyone can be socially distanced and it worked out, I'm totally fine with it. We could keep in touch. So we could schedule the video conference, but also be on call to meet in person, if that works.
Sure.
Okay,
So Thursday, June 25th, 6 p.m.
perfect. And I'll send a notice tomorrow and we'll get that rolling. Okay.
Great.
Cool. Andy, you're all set. I did not forget you, and I see your beautiful son. Do you want to introduce him to the whole world that's watching right
That's a, thank you, but I think we'll pass as to not
Okay.
have him on YouTube.
now?
Thank you, though.
He's adorable. He's
Thank you.
adorable. Did anyone else have any housekeeping before we adjourn? Okay, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
Motion.
Motion, Councilmember Zaluski. Second, Councilmember Gully. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Right. Opposed? And Mara, you'll keep us in the loop for next Thursday and we'll stay in touch and I'll keep everyone posted. Okay?
And you're going to send me a notice tomorrow about that, right?
Yes, I'm sure you'll remind me also.
All right.
Goodbye.
I don't mind forgetting, but for Andy's sake, I'll remember. All right.
I'll remember. Thank you, everyone. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Okay. Bye.